could you? How could you twice?
This week on Ebert and Roeper, Scarlett Johansson, Josh Hartnett, and Hilary Swank in the Black Dahlia.
Are you ready to accept the Mustang Challenge?
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Gridiron Gang.
And Whoopi "The Rock" Goldberg and Rob "The Rock" Reiner voice everyone's hero.
The victim has been cut in half, all organs removed, blood drained from the body, and the mouth sliced ear to ear.
She looks like that dead girl. How sick are you?
Two-time Oscar winner Hilary Swank, Josh Hartnett, and Scarlett Johansson take on one of Hollywood's most notorious murders in the Black Dahlia. I'm Richard Roeper, and sitting in for Roger for the second week in a row, it's actress and comedian Aisha Tyler. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you back. Let's get right to it. We got some movies to talk about here. Our first movie is The Black Dahlia, and it really kind of seems like my kind of movie. You've got Scarlett Johansson in a love triangle with Josh Hartnett and Aaron Eckhart. Hilary Swank plays a bisexual look-alike for a famous corpse. Brian De Palma of Scarface fame is directing from a book by the great James Ellroy. Too bad, though, that De Palma's gruesomely entertaining pulp story collapses into a pile of steaming camp in the last act. I loved much of this movie and then hated the last 20 minutes or so. We start off, it's 1947, and Los Angeles is in the middle of a post-war boom.
I'd like you to meet Kay Lake.
Hello.
Hello.
You beefing up?
You know.
I was just telling Kay here about our new hobby.
Are you a fight fan, Miss Lake?
No, Lee used to drag me. I was taking art classes so I'd sketch.
She made me quit fighting the smokers. Didn't want me doing the vegetable shuffle.
I promise not to hurt you.
That's Hartnett in probably his best performance to date as the earnest Bucky. Your name is Bucky, you gotta be earnest. And Eckhart plays Lee. He's an ambitious, rule-bending, no-nonsense type who could be the cousin of the Russell Crowe character in L.A. Confidential. Johansson plays the center of their kind of weird love triangle. When a wannabe starlet turned bad girl is murdered in gruesome fashion, Bucky and Lee are on the case.
What do I have to do to keep my name out of the papers?
What do you mean?
That's not very convincing.
I don't need your daddy's money, if that's what you're saying.
You know it's not what I'm saying.
Hilary Swank exudes sexiness in a trashy role as a bisexual praying mantis from a wealthy family populated entirely by insane people. Mia Kirshner from The L Word plays the victim, Betty Short. She's seen only in an audition reel.
Miss Short, you know, this is a very sad scene. Do you think you're capable of playing sadness?
Sure. I can do that.
Okay, we get it. Hollywood killed Betty Short's spirit long before she was actually murdered. De Palma's penchant for overwrought set pieces, flashy camera moves, and interlocking sex and violence seems perfectly suited for this salacious material, and for about two-thirds of the journey, The Black Dahlia is kind of a glorious B-movie. But then it all goes ugly and really stupid. The last act revelations aren't just implausible, they're ridiculous and they come out of left field. We have all these murders and twists and turns, and now a bunch of people we don't really know that well are going to stand around explaining it all. That drove me crazy, so I have to give it thumbs down.
Yeah, you know, it's hard for me because this is such a great collection of actors, and De Palma's, you know, I mean, he's a legendary director.
Yeah.
I have to give it thumbs down as well. I found it confusing from the very beginning. I enjoyed looking at the movie, but it was just, I came out and I just thought it was just long and dark and totally inscrutable, and then it really did take this kind of crazy turn at the end. Yeah. And it was too bad because it had a lot of interesting themes in it. There was a lot of stuff about American culture at the time, about the way these characters were interacting that were separate from the actual Black Dahlia murder case. People should know, if we didn't mention it, that this is a completely fictionalized account of what happened.
Oh my goodness! Other than about, you know, the name of the character, the Betty Short character,
the murder, where she's found, everything else is completely made up. It's from a James Ellroy novel, and you know, it's beautiful to look at, it's interesting, but it just never really gripped you in a way that I think with these actors and this material and this director, it
There's
could
too
have.
much is really what it comes down to, because you have a
going on.
notorious murder, you have some terrific actors, and then he tacks on all this other stuff and these side characters, and you're right, we're flip-flopping and going back and forth. I don't want to really be giving away too much here, but you get to a certain point where they're saying that certain people did certain things, and I'm like, Who is that?
Who's that guy?
I don't know who that guy is that did that. Because I just spent 2/3 of a movie getting to know a bunch of other people. So don't, that to me is like one of the biggest cheats you can do in film is to bring in a bunch of people toward the end and say, well, they're really the people that did this, or you thought somebody else did that.
And they step away from the Black Dahlia murder so much in this film that you kind of forget why you're there. Yeah, I mean, Hilary Swank is fantastic. It's the sexiest. She's the most sexualized role she's ever played, and she really kind of gives it her all, and she's very sexy.
And she kind of does this accent.
It is a little kind of periody. It gets a little campy, but she's great to look at. I actually thought that Mia Kirshner was fantastic as the Black Dahlia. I really liked the work she did. I mean, there was a lot of it, but I don't blame her. I think she did really great work with interesting and difficult material, but in the end, none of it worked.
I think some of it worked, but not enough to recommend it.
Yeah, okay. Boys in the Hood meets Rudy in our next film with the catchy and alliterative title of Gridiron Gang. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson stars as Sean Porter, a juvenile detention officer turned counselor, coach, and big brother to a collection of hardened juvenile felons. When Sean decides to start a football team to give the inmates some much-needed discipline, he finds that other teams aren't too keen to scrimmage with convicted criminals, no matter how charming and earnest their coach.
Well, what about our players? Don't they deserve a chance to play?
Well, frankly, no. They lost that chance when they broke the law.
Well, maybe we shouldn't let them eat either. How about that?
Sean. Mr. Torrance, let me ask you. You're a Christian, right? Didn't Jesus say something like, be merciful, just as your Father's merciful?
Rapper Exhibit stars as Sean's defensive coach or special teams coach or nickel coach. Heck, he does it all because the jail doesn't have very much money. As you might imagine, these ice-cold gangbangers soften as they learn the value of sacrifice and teamwork. They don't particularly like these kinder, gentler feelings, however, which force them to betray their old gang allegiances.
I don't know what's happening to me, man.
I do. You're not the loser you were when you first got here, Willie. You're just not used to being a winner.
And that was Jade Yorker as Willie Weathers in a nicely focused effort. This is the role that Dwayne Johnson was born to play. He's charismatic, he's engaging, and he handles the emotional scenes in the film with assurance. He turns on that charisma like a light bulb in scenes like this one, making somewhat silly speeches actually pretty effective.
Now is the time to prove to yourselves and prove to everyone out there that even though you're locked up, you are somebody. And you are worthy of something. And you're able to do something special that no one else in the world can do.
Now, despite some weak dialogue, unabashed emotional manipulation, and shamefully bald plays on race and class stereotypes, Gridiron Gang actually hits its mark. It's entertaining, the play action is well done, there are some fantastically cringe-inducing hits in this movie, and the acting is uniformly good. This is a feel-good movie that does exactly what it's supposed to. It makes you feel good. At the end of the film, the crowd was cheering, and so was I, and that's what you go to a movie like Gridiron Gang for, so thumbs up.
I felt good when it was over because it was over, and I felt good about that. Thumbs down for me. It's just, first of all, I would agree with you about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He's really likable and very comfortable on camera. He's already come a long way. Then, Aisha, they pile it on here, if I could use a football term. They got to give him a dying mother in the hospital to encourage him, and the players do this whole thing where they rally behind that. And you have to have, the shootout scene, the big violent, is so ridiculous. And then the big climactic game. You mentioned a little bit about race and class stereotypes, and they have to make the star white guy on the rich kid team. He's not just a jerk; he's a racist. And I mean, they should have had him in a pointy hat instead of a helmet. It was such a stereotype. So I think it had some good intentions. It's based on a real life character and situation. We see some of the real characters, over the closing credits. Well-intentioned, but way too corny, way too over the top.
The reason that made me forgive those problems was because it is based on a real story, and when you see this final footage, this documentary footage, a lot of what they say in the film is stuff that actually happened. I do think that there were some kind of really up-the-middle lines drawn in terms of race and class, but I even think the way that the Willie Weathers character deals with that kind of race fight from player was a nice turn.
Yeah, it was okay.
I'll tell you, I was in a crowd with a bunch of moms and teenagers, and they were just freaking out. They loved the movie, they loved everything about it. I think it had some very simple messages in it. The thing this movie has going for it is Dwayne Johnson. He is so likable.
I like him.
He's a magnet, and you like to watch him, you like to listen to him, and you believe in what he's doing.
In a better movie, I look forward to seeing The Rock do more work to the point where he's not even The Rock, where he's just Dwayne Johnson. I feel that's going to be in his future.
I think the junk that teenagers are being fed right now in terms of film films. There's so many poor movies out there that if you're going to send your 15-year-old boy or girl to see a movie, this is a good movie for them. I
would send them to see Invincible instead. I think it's a better inspirational football movie. All right. Later in the show, Orlando Bloom and Bill Paxton star in Haven, and next, Whoopi Goldberg and Rob Reiner voice everyone's hero.
Take a quick look as you roll yourself back.
Roll myself back from whoa. Oh, what a headache. No.
Hello. Everyone's Hero was co-directed by the late Christopher Reeve, and one of the producers and voice actors on the film was the late Dana Reeve. They were real heroes in real life. Unfortunately, Everyone's Hero is just a sweet but very forgettable animated adventure. The plot is just really too thin. The character's too bland. And I just don't see kids getting into a story about a kid in the 30s who befriends a talking baseball. Jake T. Austin voices Yankee Irving, and Rob Reiner plays the ball.
You talking?
I am. One smart fella, he felt smart. Two smart fellows, they felt smart. Three smart fellows, they all felt smart. I'm talking.
But wait a second. Where are you going?
Back to the sandlot where I was peacefully decomposing.
Now, the big plot development here is the theft of Babe Ruth's beloved bat, Darlin. Yankee and Screwy the baseball rescue the bat from the Chicago Cubs pitcher who swiped it. Whoopi Goldberg voices Darlin.
Born of a 1,000-year-old tree on the side of Mount Olympus, struck by lightning and carved by monks using the horn of a unicorn.
Since when do monks make baseball bats?
Are you calling me a liar?
No, of course not. In fact, I was made from the hide of Seabiscuit.
Never mind that Seabiscuit wasn't even born in 1932. I think it was noble for the filmmakers to include the scenes with the Negro League team, but that also raises uncomfortable social questions for a G-rated kids film. Everyone's Hero has some nice messages about never giving up, but it plays more like an extended Saturday morning cartoon than a feature-length motion picture, so thumbs down.
I'm sad to say I have to agree with you. I think this film...
No, you're sad because you have to agree with me?
Well,
or
I'm
you're
just
sad because you wanted to like it?
Because I wanted to like the movie, and because I think that there were moments that worked. I think, you know, the messages about never giving up and staying determined I thought were great. I liked that they mentioned the Negro League players. I think they needed to do more to explain what that was really about to a small kid.
If you're going to introduce that element, yeah.
I think when you have a small kid watching the movie, I think it would be confusing. I think it could work for really little kids, but there's just so many great animated films for families out there. I think that this might be a renter.
And even little kids these days, Aisha, I think are so sophisticated because of Pixar and all the other great animated films out there that something like this just seems kind of flat and made for TV. Yeah, it's a shame, but it's just not worth seeing.
Like it too. Coming up later in the show, Orlando Bloom stars in Haven, and next, Zach Braff and Rachel Bilson share the last kiss.
Where are you going?
Back to her place.
And I'm coming with you.
No, Willow, I mean it.
But maybe...
Looking at movies now in theaters, Nicolas Cage probably not going to get an Oscar again for The Wicker Man. It got 2 thumbs way down. Maggie Gyllenhaal, though, is terrific in Cherry Baby. It got 2 thumbs up. And Zach Braff, Jacinda Barrett, and Rachel Bilson in The Last Kiss. We liked it a lot. Got 2 thumbs up. It opens this weekend.
Just smart, well acted. Just really unexpected and wonderful.
It's really tough, I think, for a screenwriter and a director to handle, 8 or 10 characters and give each of them their moment in the sun, but we definitely get that with The Last Kiss, one of my favorite romantic comedies of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it is rare that I see a movie about characters and settings that I've never seen before. So many movies have been iterated in so many ways. So it was a real delight to watch Haven, our next film, which was set and shot entirely in the Cayman Islands. Written and directed by 24-year-old Frank E. Flowers, who's a first-time feature director and a Cayman native, this ensemble film has a dreamy, melancholic quality that holds on to you long after you leave the theater. Orlando Bloom plays Shy, a poor white islander in love with Andrea, who's rich. She's played by Zoe Saldana.
I'm nothing like those boys on spring break. I've never made a boss of you, Andrea. I love you.
No, it's just Shy. I want this.
This romantic moment sets in motion a series of events that will change both of their lives forever. At the same time, a crooked businessman, played by Bill Paxton, is about to arrive in Grand Cayman, fleeing federal investigation with a bag full of money.
Under arrest?
No. We're just here to serve you the subpoena. We need to seize anything that might be relevant business-wise.
Consuela, get these men what they need. Excuse me, I'm late for an appointment.
Hey, good luck with that appointment, Carl.
We all think of tropical islands as paradise, but in Haven, paradise is people with the same greedy, self-serving, vainglorious, and tragic characters that live everywhere else on the planet. At its heart, Haven is a modern Shakespearean tragedy about star-crossed lovers, greed, betrayal, lust, and decay, replete with its own bike-riding chorus. It's a cool, unexpected, and evocative film, so thumbs up.
There's a lot to like here, but I'm giving it thumbs down because there's just too much going on. And you mentioned Frankie Flowers, very young director who has a world of talent and needs to figure out a way to maybe harness that because he's just throwing so much out there and there's so much going on. And you mentioned the Bill Paxton character, this corrupt businessman. I have no idea why he dragged his daughter into this. It made no sense. It was one of the many, many things that just really didn't fall. You know, it's a jigsaw puzzle that just doesn't come together. I do like movies that start a certain way and then we kind of rewind and see it, you know, the Rashomon thing from another angle. But in this case, I felt like we were getting jerked around and yanked around and it led to nothing.
I definitely felt like it was a ride, and there were times when you kind of wondered where you were. But I liked going on the ride, and I just liked the characters. I liked the people. I thought it was really a unique film.
Well, you know, there's a lot of good actors here, and they're doing what they can with the material. But I just think it's all over the place, and there's this huge rivalry between these two guys. I don't know. I guess it has something to do with that we never really see in the movie because it doesn't really make sense.
I think it had to do with class and with conflict on an island that sometimes is motivated by nothing. I think you could move this movie to any small town, and you'd have these same kind of rivalries and conflicts between the rich and the poor.
It's kind of like a Western set in the Cayman Islands.
I liked it. I thought it was ambitious. I thought it was a challenge. I thought he pulled it off. I just thought it had...
Ambitious challenge, yes, pulled it off.
I like ambitious films, though. I think it's better to have a film be ambitious, try to do something very large, very sweeping, and get most of it right, than to kind of play it safe and not do anything very interesting at all.
Most of it wrong, but I'm glad you enjoyed it. Okay, when we come back, the best titles on DVD in the Thumbs Up video segment. But first, a look at what's coming up on next week's show with guest host Fred Willard.
I'm coming for him, and I'm coming for blood!
Ebert and Roeper's Thumbs Up video was brought to you by Nestle Raisinets. At the movies or at home, Raisinets.
So, come here often?
Looking at movies new on DVD, Josh Hartnett, Lucy Liu, and Bruce Willis in Lucky Number 11, which got a thumbs up from me and a thumbs down from Roger. Kiefer Sutherland and Janine Garofalo voiced The Wild. It got a thumbs up from Roger. It got a thumbs down from me. And we have The Dream Begins. It got a thumbs up from Roger and a thumbs down from me.
All right, so here's my thumbs up video pick for this week since we were watching the Gridiron Gang. If you want to see a fantastic movie about young men in prison, go get Bad Boys. Not the Martin Lawrence Will Smith version, but the 1983 version starring an incredible young Sean Penn and Esai Morales. This is a movie about young violent men in prison. It's uncompromising. It's fantastic. This is Sean Penn's first huge dramatic role. He's sensational. I mean, he's a guy who was always a fantastic actor. I mean, I saw this when I was maybe 12 and was just totally affected by it. I mean, it's probably why I'm in the business today.
I think I was 12 and a half when I saw it. But, it's a great film. And Penn and Morales, when you see them, it's like seeing like James Dean and Sal Mineo in Rebel Without a Cause. You're looking at two great actors. I have two other video picks for you, Aisha, and they're both kind of tough to watch as well, because sometimes when you talk about, rent a movie, have a good time at home, these are very good films, two of the best films of this year. One is The Proposition with Guy Pearce. It's kind of this really hard-scrabble Western set in Australia, and it is one of the most violent, raw, searing portrayals. It's, these three brothers, they're all crooks, and Guy Pearce is the middle brother who's told if he wants to save his younger brother, he has to go kill the leader of the gang, who's played by Danny Houston, who is, he comes from acting royalty and directing royalty. Danny Houston himself, a great actor. It's tough to watch, but it's really good stuff.
Nick Cave did the screenplay?
Nick Cave wrote the screenplay and actually does the music for this as well. And then there's a movie called Hard Candy. Patrick Wilson, who was in Angels in America and Phantom of the Opera, plays a very different character here. He's a 32-year-old photographer who has a thing for young girls. And Ellen Page, who's in the last X-Men movie, is terrific as this young girl. You think he's bringing her into his web, but it turns out that the tables get turned, and we get into this position where, what is this young girl going to do to this guy, and does he deserve it? Is it a revenge film? Who should we root for? Should we root for nobody? Two films I'm recommending here. I know they're very tough to watch, but for the right adult audiences, they're really, really good, strong pieces of work.
I think sometimes it's worth, putting yourself through to learn and to grow and to see a really fantastic movie with some great performances. Absolutely. So the 1983 version of Bad Boys is available right now, and Hard Candy and The Proposition will be in stores on Tuesday.
We'll be back to recap this week's show right after this.
Closed captioning for Ebert and Roeper is sponsored by
Lunesta is proud to sponsor closed captioning for this program so that the hearing impaired can enjoy the shows we all enjoy.
Okay, recapping the movies on this week's show. 2 thumbs down. Unfortunately for the Black Dahlia, we wanted to like it, but just couldn't quite recommend it. We split on Gridiron Gang. Aisha liked it. I was right. 2 thumbs down, respectfully, for Everyone's Hero, and 2 thumbs up for a terrific romantic comedy, The Last Kiss. And we split once again on Haven. Aisha, despite your questionable opinions on Gridiron Gang and Haven, it was fun sharing another week in the balcony with you.
I think there's some fun movies here. I think we split, but they were worth checking out.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff there.
I want to thank you once again for having me here. It's a real honor to be sitting in Roger's chair, and I can't wait till I'm watching the show from home and he's back in it. And it's just been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you so much. I also want to recommend that my partner has a new book out. It's called Awake in the Dark. It's a collection. I mean, Roger, we're talking 40 years of interviews, essays, and reviews. It's kind of the quintessential collection of Roger's amazing writing. It's great stuff. So pick this up, folks. And that's it for this week's show. Until next week, the balcony is closed.